Welcome everyone to Piano Technicians Master Classes. Great to see you once again. Happy Saturday. Good to see folks rolling in here. And if you've been paying attention to the emails, you know we're going to do a bit of a rebroadcast today featuring Udo Steingraber of Steingraber and Sohn Pianos. Exciting rebroadcast for today. I'll give a quick introduction to the program, and then we'll jump right in to make sure we have time to cover the whole recording. I'll say, as I'm just letting a few people in that are straggling, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. Each week, we return to bring you the most interesting, fascinating, knowledgeable folks in the piano world. And we'll bring you folks like store owners, manufacturers, actual piano technicians, makers of other instruments, recording engineers, you name it, if it applies to our knowledge and interest in the piano industry here as piano technicians. And our goal here is to meet with each other and learn from each other and to grow together. And this whole endeavor is brought to you by pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. That's online learning resource that brings you cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more about that at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And I'll put more details in the text chat. But without further ado, I think we're going to do a little screen share and get the program rolling. Feel free to communicate in the comments if you had anything you wanted to chat about today. But otherwise, I'll hop into the program and we'll enjoy. Let's pull that up. And you'll just make sure that all the sound and video are going okay. Make sure if anything's going wrong, just let me know in the chat. But I think I tested everything pretty well, and we should be rolling out. Okay. So here we go. And on today's show, we have Udo Steingraber, very exciting, from Germany. I think it's around 8 p.m. there. In 1980, Udo took over the direction of the Steingraber and Sohn company at the tender age of 24. Along with inventors, he also created a whole new range of products within the brand. He's been the guiding force behind the European Piano Technician degree. Udo has been awarded 2 cultural prizes, one from the city of Beirut, the other from the region of Upper Franconia. And there's much, much more to learn about Udo. And so without further ado, I will hand it over to Udo to just say hello, and then maybe hand it over to David, because I know, David, you know Udo better than me, and you can prod him with something to get started. But Udo, go ahead and say hi.
Hi, and thank you very much for this very nice introduction. I'm really honored that you spent your time with me tonight in this very particular year. We originally wanted to celebrate our 200th anniversary. And so Steingraber the first Steingraber factory was founded in Thuringen, Germany in 1820. So everything was canceled, and I'm really thankful to you that we can talk a little bit about what we are doing, how young we are with our 200 years of age. And it's not so important that I'm 40 years in now. That makes me always afraid a little bit, and I cannot really believe it. So David,
it's great to have you here.
I do not see you yet. Where are you on the screen?
David, me?
He's here.
David Anderson. Oh, what David, here you are. Hi, how are you?
Man, it's great to see you, brother. Last time we saw each other was what, at the NAMM show, I think.
Yeah, it's only half a year ago. It seems to be such a long time, but everything changed within that time.
A lot of changes. So I just want to tell everybody that I've had a 15-year history with Udo Steingraber, and he's turned out to be, one of those people that you can say, he's a stand-up guy. He's a good guy. And he's a good guy, which is great, thank God. But he's also an amazing piano obsessive nerd geek. He's probably the most trained and knowledgeable piano maker that exists, I would say, with the possible exception of Michael Spreeman, who makes a one-off piano. I became a Steingraber dealer in 2005. So I got a lot of up close and personal views of Udo and how he dealt with so many different people in so many different situations. And in 2005, few people knew about Steingraber, but not a lot of people. And one guy said to me at one point when I was showing him the Steingraber, this was a fairly famous pianist, and he'd never heard of him, never heard of the piano. And I said, well, come and play it. And he played it, and he was literally like dazed and like, what is this? He said, how come I don't know about this?
Now, probably it's why we are so small.
Well, yeah. And he said, this is the greatest piano in the world that nobody's ever heard of. Well, 15 years later, pretty much everybody knows about Steingravers. And that's the beautiful thing, one of the beautiful things that Udo has done in 15 years is to make sure that Steingravers are known and played and perceived in at least the major American cities and talked about all over the internet, all over these forums in the internet. And the reason that that's all happening is because they're legitimately, one of the 2 or 3 finest pianos in the world. They're awesome instruments. If all you piano technicians have never put your hands on a Steingraber, you're in for a treat, man. I could sit here for the next 2 hours and talk about there's the things on the Steingraber that I really like. There's only like 2 things I don't know. But there's dozens of things that I really like about the Stein. And so all I can say is that Udo has a wealth of experiences. And one thing I'd like to do, whether this show or another show, is to really ask you, my brother, what the feeling of the artists are that you interface with, that you've interfaced with for decades. What are the feelings of those artists about first Steingraber and what the piano they're playing is like, but then just like, what is their favorite part of a piano? What makes them the happiest when it's to their liking when they come up with the piano? That's a fascinating.
Mm.
So I definitely want you to talk about a bit of the history of Steingraber.
Okay. So when I thank you, David. Too much. 40 years ago, when I took over the job for my father, it was a decision to continue a former high-end brand, which was a little bit sleepy after the Second World War's time. We stopped, for example, building concert grands in 1939, and it lasted until the end of the 1990s, where we went back to the high-end club by going ahead with a new production on the basis of an 1894 design of a concert grand, our E272, the 9-footer. And the basic thinking of all the different models we created during these last 40 years, 5 grand piano models and 3 upright piano models, was what's the reason to have another brand besides all the high-end brands which are existing, and mainly Steinway. And our decision was no imitation from anyone, but create your own character of tone, of touch, be classical and very traditional, but combine it with as much innovation as you can. And there is a lot to do because, as you know, the major brands in the market, so the big brothers of little Steingraber, they are continuing the brilliant work from the which they formed with the construction designs by the turn of the 19th century to the 20th. So for 100 years, there was very little innovation. And focusing of one sound ideal, one character of sound brilliance, orchestral imitation, presence, strong pianos, all that is good, but why should we imitate it? So we were deciding already in the 1980s to go for a former ideal at first. The ideal of tone, which was in the world of Beethoven, of Schumann, Schubert, Chopin, which was in the times afterwards, in the second half of the 19th century, replaced by these strong and powerful orchestral instruments. So we focused on colors, on transparency, on polyphony, and then we tried to improve the action by making it quicker, to increase, for example, the up weight without having a strong counterweight against the finger, but an elegant touch which is quicker than normal. All that was a work of a club of 5 people in our construction design staff. 3 of them didn't change in these 14 years, so it's a very traditional club. But step by step, we found things which were fascinating our big bosses, and our big bosses from you and from us are the piano players, and especially the professional pianists. And I am convinced that we should offer the world of music, the people who are spending their life with music, we should enrich their lives by having alternative sounds and alternative touches and a big variety of different brands. So I'm always happy when there are new products in the market Probably somebody of you knows a colleague in France, Stéphane Polello, who recently brought out his new 120 notes concert grand, straight strung. And all these is showing that our world of piano in the last at least 25, but I think a little bit more years became richer than it was in the all over the 20th century. The 20th century was compared with the 19th century, the century of not the century for pianos. I'm in the city of Bayreuth, and our biggest musician here was Mr. Wagner. Unfortunately, not Mr. Liszt. Our favorite is Mr. Liszt. But Richard Wagner's operas destroyed somehow towards end of the 19th century the world of the pianists. It was replaced. The composers didn't continue with piano music. They continued mostly with operas. So, and now in the last decades, more and more piano comes up in the minds of the general and big auditoriums, and pianists are again the top musicians in the world of music. And that's why we were in the last 15 years more and more thinking what can we add to the piano that it's becoming even more interesting. And so we first looked in the history.
I'm actually gonna interrupt you real quick, Udo,
yes,
and
sure.
That's just to say that for anybody that's on Facebook, YouTube, just to give you a heads up, we'll be signing off our live stream now. Just make sure and subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour to view the recording, or check for a link in the chat to register for today's session free, and you can join us on Zoom. I just want to give people a heads up on that. But yeah, we'll continue the session with Udo Steingraber, and he's really talking about the philosophy of his company. And we've got a lot more to talk about. I actually have a question in the chat. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pop in this question just to make sure some people are getting a chance to participate, and see if you can follow up to it. So Mark Campbell asks, the information age has made many industries either obsolete or at best constantly changing. While pianos have been one thing that has held to its traditions, it too is changing. And, you know, to the best of your knowledge, he asks, what can we expect both near term and long term, and how can we prepare? So if you want to speak to that a little bit, that'd be very interesting to hear your thoughts.
Piano is in fashion more than now, more than in the mid of the